We're joined now with Damon Jones, the number 14th ranked prospect for the Philadelphia Phillies, currently in Phillies camp right now in Allentown with it at the Phillies facility. So first, Damon, thanks so much for coming on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we get started, it's been a crazy year, and we all know that it's been crazy, and you can attest to it even more. What has an average day been like for somebody that's in the facility?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously it's kind of like new testing ground, testing every other day in terms of the COVID testing. And other than that, it's really staggered groups, not a lot of guys around at the same time. We're using both locker rooms, so it's pretty spread apart. Even in the locker rooms, we got lockers in between us. So, they're using as many safety protocols as possible. Days at the field, they're pretty brief as long as you're not, throwing aside or you're throwing in the game. You're pretty much in and out. If you have to lift, you may be there max of 3 hours, whereas, other days during the season, you're there the whole time kind of thing. So it's just new territory.
What coaches have been around you guys?
Sure. So we have Rafael Chavez, the pitching coordinator. We have Travis Hergert, who's the assistant pitching coordinator. Aaron Foltz, who is the AAA pitching coach this year. Pitching-wise, I think that's all. We got Chris Truby, the field coordinator. He's overseeing everything. We have Milver Reyes. He's overseeing the catchers. We got Tyler Henson and Jason Ochart are kind of working with the hitters. And Henson can work with infielders too, but Truby also does that. And then Andy Abad's working with the outfielders. I believe that's all staff-wise. And then we have a nutritionist here as well, and I think that's everyone. Yeah.
What were some of the things that you've been looking to improve on now that you're in the facility, you're around the coaches? What are some things you're trying to look to build upon?
Sure. So I didn't really know what role I was going to take this year. And obviously now I kind of have a sense of they're stretching me out. So I'll throw another 4 innings here upcoming on Tuesday. So sticking with the starter role for the time being. So, I threw 3. I was supposed to throw 4 last, I think it was Wednesday, but the rain shortened it. So it was only 3. But development-wise, definitely just refining my mechanics again. And because summer camp, they were good. And then it was kind of like a crossover into this training, this satellite camp, and I kind of lost myself a little bit. So definitely finding those again, as well as all my pitches started to show back up once I found my mechanics again. So my curveball was struggling quite a bit, as well as my changeup. My fastball and slider were fine, but I didn't have anything other than 2 pitches. And so now that those other 2 pitches are starting to show back up, it kind of makes me a complete pitcher again.
Those innings you're expecting to throw, are those simulated games or intra-squad games? Like is it just a bullpen session? Like what's
Sure. Yeah. So it's basically you're facing the same 5 hitters over and over again. The catcher kind of from the other team kind of plays, gets his ABs here and there when he can. He may get 1 less than all the other guys, but you're facing 5 guys in a lineup. You have, coaches in the infield and the outfield and position players filling in, getting their spots too. So it's definitely just, uncharted territory, but they're trying to make it as closely competitive and simulated as possible for sure.
What was it like being in the summer camp? And first I'm going to ask, what was it like when you got the phone call that you were going to be going to the Phils this year? Was it something you anticipated? What was the emotion you felt?
I kind of anticipated, I guess. I was at big league camp, so I figured I could be one of the guys as well to fill the 60-man pool. Once I got to camp, it was just, seeing familiar faces and basically continuing on the process, because I was one of the first guys to get sent down because they were going to stretch me out before all this COVID happened. So it was kind of seeing familiar faces again. Kind of showing what I had done over the that quarantine break and what I'd done to improve and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was nice to get back in a group setting. And I was throwing inside most of the time during the quarantine. So.
What was your training like during the quarantine? Did you get workouts from the Phillies? Were you making up your own stuff? I know that both of your parents were involved in coaching, so that kind of helped you a little bit, I guess, too.
Yeah, sure. So I started in Idaho for like the first 2 months, and I was basically throwing into a screen in my backyard because the high school was shut down. So I really wasn't throwing pens or anything then, but I was keeping up long toss, doing what I could with what I had. And then the field opened back up, the high school field. So I was able to like actually long toss instead of just simulating it into a net. And then I was able to throw off the mound a little bit. After that, we went up to Washington because my daughter had a 9-month checkup. So it was just basically, hey, we got to go see your doctor. But I actually had quite a better setup there. I do pitching lessons in the off season at this facility, and I was able to get in there and get my work in. There was a weight room as well. So it was just it was a better, like more ideal situation where I wasn't doing like body weight workouts where I was in Idaho and just, I don't know. It was crazy quarantine. I mean, I did the best I could in terms of what I had, but it was definitely better to get to Washington compared to what I had in Idaho for sure.
And I know a lot of people talked about, and I was one of the people that were wondering, what would the adjustment be like for a pitcher going from not really facing live hitting to going right in and facing professional hitters? Can you talk about, was it a tough adjustment? Was it a mental thing? What was it difficult at all for you, or do you not really notice a difference?
I think for me, it was definitely more of a mental thing than a physical thing. I think that's really the one thing in terms of my progress that either helps or hinders me is my mental work. And so just dialing that in, and Brian Price is very good on the mental side of things. Like he definitely has a way to, I wouldn't say get into your head, but kind of like ease your mind. So it's like he's just a calming presence when he's there. And so it helps a lot to kind of pick his brain and have him watch pens. And then obviously you got other guys too that you kind of, they give you feedback, you give them feedback, stuff like that. So it just really helps kind of, I don't know, especially because I hadn't faced a whole lot of hitters, and then you just hop right in. You got, hey, you got 2 innings. Like I had pitch count up because I was doing like up down sessions, but it wasn't like I was facing guys and, you know, striking guys out, getting swings and misses. It was just, you know, having someone stand in there, and it's like, I don't know, would you have swung at that kind of thing? So it's definitely just kind of a dive head first and just get into it kind of thing.
Was the coaching staff during the quarantine and communication with you guys for what you need to work on, or did they kind of let you guys work on your own a bit, or is it kind of a mix between those two?
So before the player pool was announced, it was just kind of a whatever respective coach was with us during the year before, or sometimes like I was talking to Travis Hergert for most of the quarantine, and he and Pat Robles, who was a GCL pitching coach, but they kind of did some throwing programming and some med ball work to try and repattern my lower half. That was one thing I really wanted to fix, because where I was at in big league camp to where I am now, I was definitely overstriding a little bit. And so I was definitely working to not reinvent myself, but just, you know, get into better mechanics. So I feel like that helped a lot. But yeah, I had teammates who would say, hey, so-and-so's called me, blah, 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 who's talking to you? So yeah, it was definitely just kind of coaches would get a group of maybe 8 or 10 guys and check in at least a couple times a week. We also had strength coaches checking in at least once a week as well. So they were pretty on top of things in that point.
What did you feel the first time you stepped on the mound at Citizens Bank Park? Can you talk about what you felt, the emotion that, like, knowing that you really were, this is your first time pitching in a major league park and that you're taking in all the sights and sounds?
Other than the fact that it was completely empty with fans, it was a great moment. I mean, it was eerie because eventually they started bringing like the fan noise and stuff like that. But at first they didn't have fan noise. The first time I stepped on the mound, it was just kind of a music playing and then basically dead silence. But I'm a pretty amped up pitcher. Like I don't really need to feed off the crowd. I amp myself up, and so I didn't really need that. It went well. Like I had a first good outing. I had pretty much every outing I threw went well, except for probably the last one. But other than that.
How surreal was it for you going from basically 3 years ago being an 18th round selection to then 3 years later now pitching in Citizens Bank Park and really starting to really develop into the pitcher that the Phillies and others really saw that you could be?
I owe a large part of it to probably driveline baseball in terms of getting velocity that I really didn't have up until probably my draft year. And then even then I was just kind of experimenting with it. And then to be able to like fully immerse myself this past off season, like, yes, I had that rise from high A to triple A last year. And then I got to experience actually training with the driveline guys instead of just kind of doing their program online, like actually being in that facility. I think that helped me quite a bit. But yeah, I feel like just I don't know, all the hard work kind of paid off. I've never really been like a household name in baseball. Even in high school, I walked on in my JUCO. I happened to be the pitching coach at Washington State. Dan Spencer saw me after he was scouting one of my teammates just to like recruit players. So it's just kind of been being in the right place at the right time. And then I actually talked to Johnny Almaraz, who drafted me, who was the scouting director at the time. They were there to watch David Peterson when he's with the Mets now, and they were there to watch him throw. And I just happened to impress him enough to give me a shot. So I'm grateful for it.
Based off who you've faced in your career, I'm kind of transitioning over to that. Has there been anyone who you've faced against that is this like, whoa, this guy's a special talent, or someone for us as baseball fans to keep our eyes on hitting wise too for years to come? Or
in our organization or out of our organization?
Either or whichever you want. You can do both if you want, whichever one you want to bring up.
So I didn't face another team at all, at least this year, in spring training or anything. Like, I mean, maybe in terms of our own guys, Listy's always a tough out for me. I mean, especially because of his strike zone recognition. I know he's not like, because he just showed up, he's not like in true season form yet. But I know, like, especially facing him in spring training, it's always like, damn it, I got to face Austin Listy. He just puts together tough at-bats. Other than that, I don't think I've faced guys enough. I mean, I've faced Bryson Stott and Nick Maton quite a bit, and it's either been they get me or I get them. It hasn't been like complete domination on either side. So there haven't been too many guys where it's like popping off the charts, but it's also like none of these guys are slouches either. So it's just kind of a good battle each time you step on the mound or they get in the box.
I was going to say, last year you started out the season in Clearwater. You were absolutely lights out. Then you went to Reading for like 4 games. You were dominant again. And then you went up to AAA. What was that journey like just over a matter of a couple of months?
It was really, to use the word again, surreal. Just kind of, I don't know, I had a baby on the way that we knew about, and it was just like just a crazy feeling. But I feel like that maybe took my mind off things, and I didn't put so much pressure on myself, and I just kind of let my abilities take over. Once I got to AAA, I feel like maybe I tired out a little bit. I walked too many guys for sure, but especially those first 2 or 3 months of Clearwater and AA, it was just so much fun just to get on the mound and compete and perform well. I mean, obviously you want to do that every time, but just to have that confidence. I mean, that was probably the first time in my career where I'm like, I'm really good at this game. I mean, I can make something of it. So it was nice to feel.
Yeah, I definitely remember the first start I saw you throw. I was, this guy's really legit now. Like I understood the strikeout numbers, the lack of walks. Because I think the first start you only had like 1 hit through 6 or 7, and it was just
through
dominant.
6 innings, 12 Ks. I think I gave up a run on a sac fly after the guy got a hit, and then somehow he got around. It might have been like a move him over, get him in kind of a situation, but it was a good debut for sure.
What were some of the adjustments that you had to make moving up through the different levels?
From Clearwater to Reading, I wouldn't say it was too much. That slider was huge for me. Finding that slider in Clearwater, that was kind of it still is probably my most comfortable pitch, and I can pretty much go to it at any time. Once I got to AAA, obviously the new baseball probably played a little bit of a factor in terms of I had to find a way for my pitches to move how they did in Clearwater and Reading. I didn't have as much seams to kind of play with, as well as probably a little overtired. So walked more guys, gave up timely hits, and it just led to kind of not getting deeper into starts like I was previously. Yeah, probably that.
Your strikeout numbers really got a large increase dramatically over between the 2018 season when you were in Lakewood. Can you talk about what changed and what really led to the big strikeout numbers? Was it the slider, or was there any other adjustments you made personally?
I'd say, I had a slight velo increase as well. Definitely started sitting a little bit higher, and obviously the harder you throw, the more strikeouts you have usually. That's usually how it works. And then the slider as well was definitely it helped me with lefties, especially because 2018, I mean, we talked about this in an analytics meeting. I wasn't very good against lefties in 2018. And so it definitely took a split the other way in 2019. So that was great news.
What role I know because analytics can go either way for different pitchers, especially. What role how have you incorporated analytics into your pitching, and do you either let it over affect you, or how do you utilize the numbers that you have at your disposal?
Pre-game, there's always a meeting with the catcher, and you're always dealing with hot zones, cold zones, who hits what well, stuff like that. And especially when you get up to like the AAA level, these guys have so many ABs. They have basically tendencies that's who they are. They're not going to change it, kind of thing. And so as long as you're establishing that game plan, then obviously the start's going to go well. Sometimes you have to, call an audible because maybe, hey, I can't land the curveball for a strike, and that's what I needed to do to get this guy out. So what can we change? And sometimes you have to change on the fly. And so there's also that. But for the most part, I mean, I love analytics. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm definitely in a love-hate relationship with the shift, though. Like, I feel like they're either placed perfectly or I throw it the wrong way, or even if I throw it in the right spot, they're not there. So I just have to trust it for the most part. Like, I know in the past, it's been like, if that guy was there, it'd be perfect. But then it's also saved me in numerous times. So it's like that's why they're there for a reason. So.
And you mentioned going to driveline, and I know that has a big effect on pitchers and their analytics. Can you talk about what that experience working with them, how that changed you a bit or helped you improve?
Yeah, I was there for 3 months. I was there November through January, basically. And first off, I came in September, just after the season, and they wanted to get me on like a biomechanics assessment and kind of see how I was moving. And then we did it again in that 3-month period just to kind of see changes I'd made, stuff like that, because I took the month of October off. And so it was just really cool to kind of see all of it before your eyes. Like, obviously, they're pretty knowledgeable in terms of how the body moves and how people are supposed to pitch. Sometimes they get the short end of the stick because people think all they do is throw hard every day all the time. And it's really not that. I mean, they have the recovery aspect in there too. More days you're throwing with low intent than high intent, but it was just, I don't know, actually working. Like, they have these drills that you do that say you have certain issues with your mechanics. And so you're supposed to do these certain drills and they'll clean up your mechanics. And so it's really not a one size fits all, but it was definitely fun to kind of have guys teach me that knew what they were doing with these weighted balls. Cause I'd done them since like mid 2017, probably a couple months before I'd gotten drafted. And it was just nice to, I don't know, talk one-on-one, ask these questions. Cause I really couldn't ask questions before. It was just kind of like, I'm just going to throw this thing against the wall and that's it.
For somebody like yourself, who's really just, like we keep saying, flown under the radar, really counted out, one of the things we talk about is how you come back, how you overcome adversity, what motivates you. What type of advice would you give to somebody in a similar position as yourself, whether going through JUCO or to a Division I, or even at a different level, or even a high school kid? What advice would you give them as far as preparation or how to go to the next level and get discovered?
Probably work ethic is definitely the number one thing. Like, you have to just get in there and grind it out. I mean, there's those days when you don't want to get up, and I mean, obviously you don't have to get up at 6 a.m. and crush weights or anything like that, but like, getting in the weight room is step number one. I think that's played a huge role in my development, is getting stronger, and arm care is definitely number two. Obviously you only have so many bullets and you got to take care of it as best as you can. But yeah, definitely just those two things are huge, and just keeping in shape and just knowing that your work's going to pay off in the end.
Kind of going off that with the not knowing what was going to come from that and flying under the radar, was there a moment when you started thinking like maybe baseball isn't going to be the path, or did you was there any point where you kind of thought of what you could do next if baseball didn't work out, or did you always, once you got into the minor leagues, think like, I'm going to keep pushing until I get kicked out the door or whatever?
So I set goals before every year. I have a notebook that I put my goals into, and basically check marks that I'm trying to hit. I set a goal after I first got drafted. It was kind of a goal just to my own. It was like, all right, if I am 27 years old and I haven't made it by that time, I think I need to hang him up kind of thing. So it's like, obviously you're going to reassess every year, but that was probably my first goal was just, I don't know, I think 23 at the time. So it was kind of like 4-ish years. It might have been 22. So 4.5 years. I was like, I mean, obviously I'm an older draft pick. I definitely have to, find a way to be head and shoulders above my competition and just, claw my way to the top kind of thing. So yeah, probably that.
Was there a point that you realized that you were going to be the player or be able to play professionally? What was that point that you realized that?
That's a good question. Definitely not in high school. High school was not a great baseball player. I was a good high school player, but I didn't think, hey, I have a shot of going D1 and getting drafted. Like I didn't throw very hard. I also, my arm hurt all the time throwing, and I figured out I needed elbow surgery. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I got that in my redshirt freshman year of JUCO, and then came back, and I had also worked my butt off in the weight room, and I think that's where that kind of all started was during that time in 2014 was definitely the start of becoming the best pitcher I could be, because before that I don't think I ever really took baseball seriously. Basketball was my favorite sport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love basketball. I still love it.
What team do
I
you
still
like?
play it. Probably
Yeah,
the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay.
Congrats
my
on congrats on the
Yeah,
8th seed.
for sure. My grandpa ended his career there, so
Oh, wow.
I think that's
Oh wow.
yeah, that's where I don't know, because he played for 6 different teams, but that was probably the team that I like the most, and they're also the closest to me. So
Oh. If I did my job better in writing, I would have probably known that. So.
no, you're good. Yeah, he played for 12 seasons, I believe.
Oh, wow. So when you were a kid, did you have a favorite team or player that you either emulated or really thought highly of?
Probably Randy Johnson,
Oh, wow.
baseball wise. Yeah, big, tall lefty, threw hard. Other than that, not really. I mean, we didn't watch a whole lot of. We did, but we didn't really have like a favorite team that we watched. My dad wasn't like he didn't have a specific team, so baseball was always on, sports were always on, but it wasn't like a favorite team that he had. So, but I know I had like a little figurine of Randy Johnson in my room, one of those little ones you could buy at the store, and so definitely him.
If you were not a pitcher right now, where do you think you would see yourself? What would you be doing?
If I was still playing baseball, but
If you were
wasn't
not,
a pitcher?
if you were not pitching and you weren't you probably might say a hitter, but if you weren't a professional baseball player, what would you be doing?
Well, I have 12 credits left on my criminal justice degree, but that was just kind of a degree because I only had 3 choices with my credits transferring from junior college. They didn't transfer all that great. And so honestly, I wanted to be like a park ranger, like work in Yellowstone National Park. But honestly, right now, I really couldn't tell you what I'd want to do other than play baseball for sure.
That's a good answer.
Is there a pitcher or a batter currently in Major League Baseball? Like, say the dream comes true at some point soon, you get to go to the major leagues. Is there someone you can't wait to face off against or test yourself against, or it's just whatever you get, you get?
I was going to say, yeah, I don't really have a one batter that's like, hey, I want to face him in my debut, or, I mean, because obviously they're a major league hitter for a reason. I'll face any of them, really. I don't have a set one in mind. It's whoever comes up to the plate, it's me against you kind of thing.
And so the last thing I would say is what were some of your goals that you had?
Sure. Pre-COVID, I'd say my goal was to break as a starter in AAA and debut sometime this year. I didn't really have a set plan on when to debut, but definitely put my name in the running for one of those first guys getting called up if need be. Was pre, and then post, it's kind of a crapshoot, honestly. Like the whole team could go down in a day, kind of thing. It's so crazy. Just, I mean, you've seen how it is with the Phillies. They had that week, and it might have been like 8 or 9 days where they didn't play a game. The Marlins have an entirely different roster, so you're seeing a lot of guys debut that maybe wouldn't have had a chance this year. I mean, I thought I would have had a chance, COVID or not, so I'm really not taking anything away from that. It's just, yeah, that was definitely one of my goals. Was I didn't care if I was debuting as a starter or reliever, but to make the big leagues was definitely goal number 1 on my checklist.
And I want to really, again, I want to thank you so much for taking. Or Colin, you got anything? Or you were to say something?
No, I think you wrapped it up pretty good. I guess the final question I hear a lot when pitchers are asked is, your arsenal, you said you have fastball, slider, and what else do you have?
Fastball, slider, curveball, changeup.
So if you can replace one of those pitches with a better version, say one pitch that you're working on, you could take any pitcher in the major leagues or in your organization as well, their version of that pitch, and replace yours with it. Is there one you have in mind, or?
Let's see. I would probably take anyone's changeup, just because that's probably my worst pitch. If I had to take like a big leaguer's changeup, I'd probably take. That's a good question. So many good. Actually, no. I'd take Shane Bieber's curveball right now, because that thing's unhittable.
Yeah, that is a good call. That guy is.
Good answer.
Yeah, he is dominating right now.
That's a heck of it. And one quick thing: is it tough to keep track? I know with the guys that you're constantly making roster moves. Are you guys actively keeping track? Are you kind of being aware of what's going on in the professional league, both with the Phillies and other teams?
I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, there's only so many guys playing baseball right now. I feel like you're always hearing something. Like, I mean, it was pretty much news as soon as Nick Williams got picked up by the Reds yesterday, I believe. Yeah. And it was just like, I'm probably never going to see him again, in terms of maybe I'll see him in the league from now on, but not again this year. And he had just stood in on one of my pens, or stood behind, and he was just saying, hey, I see this, I see that. And it's just like, I mean, obviously you're paying attention to where guys going, guys that are debuting, maybe guys that you've played with before or had pitched against before, and you're like, wow, I didn't know he was there. And yeah, it's definitely just definitely keeping your eye on other guys for sure.
Just one last one, kind of following up. Is there anyone you got to break camp with the team, and now you're in the alternate site? Is there anyone on the either active roster or through the organization that kind of took you under your wing and you've kind of been learning a bit from throughout the organization, or is it still just?
I enjoy talking with Cole Irvin quite a bit. He's very smart in his pitching. Obviously, he has a velo bump so far this year. He's throwing harder than he did last year, but he goes about the game in such a different way than a lot of guys. He definitely loves to, I don't know, break it down almost to a science. And so it's fun to listen to him talk. And so the past couple of days, it's been Irvin. Guys that are on the big league roster right now, I don't, obviously it wasn't a conversation I was in. I was just listening to Wheeler and Arrieta talk, and just listening to them talk about pitching is very fun, and just how they go about their business. And especially Jake, he's been doing it for so long. And so it's just like, I don't know, it's almost easy for them. Obviously they're not going to have their best start every time, but it's just like the way baseball is to them. I want to get to that point someday.
Well, we really do thank you for coming on with us and taking time away from your family and your daughter. We really do appreciate it. And we really wish you the best of luck, and we know it's going to work out, and we're looking to see you in the big leagues pretty soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.